So I suppose we can start.
Yeah.
So firstly,
You're muted, sir.
hello, hello everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning,
Morning.
Nina. And I think there are still several people that are trying to join in. So maybe we can just give everyone 2 or 3 minutes. But thank you very much for taking time to join us for this APAMS first scientific session. And for those who were able to join us yesterday, the plenary, it certainly was very encouraging to see that there was this great desire to really focus on something in which Filipino science or scientists by Filipinos all around the world really creates a network for good and really wanting to reach out and to provide solutions to the challenges that we are faced with today. And yesterday was very encouraging because to really put together a whole lot of people who are really working in the forefront and also in the back end of the challenges of the COVID pandemic, not only in our different countries, but really on a local level was very encouraging. So, you know, the macro scale and also the personal solidarity. I think I just want to quote what Secretary Ernie Pernia said, that, you know, he highlighted that this bayanihan spirit that we have as Filipinos really is something that we should not undervalue. And so this example of doing the PAASE is a good example, because as our president, Gisela Concepcion, a month ago threw this challenge to the people who are involved in this, that can we do it? And at the beginning, many people said, this is too challenging and let's not do it. But she threw the gauntlet and said, well, if we are going to be defeatists, we will not be able to go ahead. And so when she sent the invitation to the different chairs for the different sessions, she said, well, do you want to be in it? And so I really felt this sense of solidarity, you know, really to, you know, me as an expat Filipino living here in Melbourne, I said, well, it is worth trying. You know, we might fail, but as long as we fail, but not to give up and try. And so it was such a remarkable session yesterday. And so today we go first up as one of the first parallel sessions. I believe there are 3 parallel sessions happening today. And so I just want to draw your attention to everyone that really the conference theme is the outreach to Philippine regions. So as chairs, we were asked to essentially choose speakers that could represent some of the remarkable work that is being done in the regions. So as you can see, there are 6 speakers, including myself, and everyone is going to talk about something of the essentially the challenges of managing our ecosystems. What are the evolutionary impacts of the challenges of modern living, if you like, on these ecosystems. So both in terrestrial ecosystems and aquatic ecosystems. So in many ways, it's a very large mandate to talk about something like this that's very wide, but I think you will be satisfied to see that the speakers that are talking really express a taste of the variety, if you like, the biodiversity of life, and what are our challenges in integrating our understanding as human beings in making sure that we care for the ecosystems that we live in, that we are not separated from them, but we really have to understand with our biological thinking how to manage these so that we do not render this unlivable. So as you can see, we have 6 speakers, and without much more, I think we can start off. And I would like to introduce our first speaker. So our first speaker is Dr. Damasa-Macandog, known to us as Demi. And Demi is a professor of plant ecology and is the head of the Environmental Biology Division of the Institute of Biological Sciences in UP Los Baños. She did her undergraduate and master's degree in UP Los Baños in agricultural science and completed her doctorate in plant ecology at the University of New England, New South Wales. As an aside, I have to say that I probably am one of the people who has valued Demi's doctorate thesis, because when I did my doctorate, one of the grass species she worked with was very important in the research that I had done. So I had read her papers before I actually got to meet Demi 10 years ago. And I was so pleased that I finally put a face to a name and the work that she had, exemplary work that she had done. So Demi provides leadership to the faculty and manages the various teaching and administrative concerns of the division. And you can see she has quite a lot of research interests, which include land use change, impacts on biodiversity and hydrologic balance, and biodiversity, information systems, climate change, and environmental risk, and a whole lot more. And she is also a reviewer of the International Foundation for Science, Philippine Science High School, and several scientific journals. So I would like to hand over to Demi to give her talk. So over to you, Demi.
Yes, so thank you very much, Dr. Yok, Doronila, for that nice introduction. And maybe I just missed something. I was the division head about 2 years ago. So currently our division head is Dr. Junlit. Yes. All right. So I'll now share my screen. Wait, where is it? Hang on. Okay, right. Yes. So this one. Right. Is this okay now?
Yes,
or,
yes. Very clear, yes, thank you.
Right, yes. Okay, so again, good morning, everyone, and thank you for finding the time to attend to our session for this PAMS, APAMS 2020, that is on ecology, evolution, fisheries, and marine science. And I would like to thank Eob for asking me to be part of this session. It's really an honor and my pleasure to share with you what we have been doing in one of our research studies. And of course, I would like to thank Ma'am Giselle Concepcion, our very active, very dynamic president of PAASE, for organizing this very challenging first Zoom conference of the PAASE. Okay, so what I will be presenting to you is a part of our study in the 7 lakes of San Pablo City. So I would like to focus in here the impacts of aquaculture and ecotourism, the anthropogenic activities in the lakes. And I have here a long list of co-authors. So these are part of our research team. So my colleagues at the division, my graduate students, and our other study leaders in the project. Right. Wait, I think I have to do the slideshow. Right. Okay. The next one. Is it right? Looks like it's not working. Sorry. Now, okay, so I'll just do it this way.
Oh, yes, I can see it now, yes.
Okay, right. So this paper that I'm going to present to you is part of our 7 Lakes Assessment and Monitoring Program. This is funded by the Department of Science and Technology, and it is being implemented by the National Research Council of the Philippines. The program is composed of 4 projects, and ours is the 4th one. We are doing modeling, finding the recreational and aquaculture carrying capacity. So it's a 2-year project. So what I'm going to present you are outputs of our first year activities last year. So this one is our study site. So of course, here is the map of the Philippines, and San Pablo City is there in the part of Southern Luzon, that is in Calabarzon region. And in the inset map is the San Pablo City map, and you can see the little blue circles, and the largest of which is Sampaloc Lake, which is right there at the heart of the city. And then you can see the other smaller lakes. And this table is showing you the physical characteristics of the 7 lakes, and we got this from Mendoza et al. 2019. So in terms of elevation, most of the lakes are at low elevation ranging from 80 to 100, 160 meters above sea level. It is only Lake Calibato, the one that is highlighted in red font, that is located at a higher elevation, 1,700 meters above sea level. In terms of surface area, as you have seen in the previous slide, Lake Sampaloc is the biggest, about 1 million square meters, while the rest of the lakes are smaller ones ranging from 220 to around 480,000 square meters. Okay. In terms of depth, there's a very wide range of depth, from very shallow one that's only 7.7 meters, and that is Lake Palakpakim, to a deep one, that is Lake Calibato, that is located at the higher elevation. It has a water depth of 156 meters. All the other lakes range from 20 to 62 meters. In terms of eutrophic condition, Mendoza et al. Classified the 3 lakes of Bunot, Calibato, and Palakpakin as eutrophic lake. So they are more, they are richer in nutrients as compared with Sampaloc, Pandin, Yambo, and the other one, sorry, I cannot see, which are mesotrophic lakes. Okay. In terms of the surface area of the lake that has been covered by fish cages, so the data that's being presented here would be the surface area from 2017 to 2018. The red ones here, I would like to point out that, why are they red? That is because I would like to show you that the surface area covered by these fish cages increased within a span of 1 year. So for example, Lake Bunot, from 13 to about 19%. Calibato from 14 to 22%, and Lake Palakpakin from around 12 to 17%. All the other 4 lakes, Sampaloc, Pandin, Yambo, and Mohicap, demonstrated a decrease in the area of the fish cages. Sampaloc Lake from around 10 to around 8%. So please take note that Laguna Lake Development Authority mandated that the area that should be covered by fish cages should be around 10% only. So Lake Sampaloc is trying to follow that mandate. Pandin and Yambo have very small area that's being occupied by fish cages, around only 2%. Pandin is 1.8, much lesser, and Mohicap is around 6%. With regard to settlement that's living around the lake, Sampaloc is the biggest lake. It is in the heart of the city. That is why it is also surrounded by so many houses, 18,600 population. All the others, Bunot, Calibato, Palakpakin, and Pandin had around 8,000 to 8,500 residents. Mohicap, 3,800, and the smallest one, the fewest residents, would be around Lake Yambo, only 2,000. In terms of uses, so you will notice that all of the lakes are classified as being used for fishery. They just vary in the extent of the area that is being used for fishery. Fishery means aquaculture, fish cages, and of course, open fishing. And 4 lakes, Sampaloc, Pandin, Yambo, and Mohicap, are being used for tourism. Right, okay. So this is just an aerial view of the 3 lakes that are being used for aquaculture: Calibato, Palakpakin, and Bunot. So you will notice, you will see the fish cage structures. No, they are floating around the lake. And then the next slide here would be the 4 lakes that's being used for tourism. So we have Yambo, Pandin, Sampaloc, and Mohicap. So you will notice that the vegetation around Yambo and Pandin, sorry, I get a phone call. Sorry. That Yambo and Pandin are covered by lush vegetation, as well as Mohicap, though part of the area in Mohicap is covered by agricultural area. And Lake Sampaloc here is covered by or surrounded by settlements, houses. Right? It's at the heart of the city. Then the next slide here is data we got from the San Pablo Tourism Office because they have a logbook of the tourists that visit the lakes. And you will notice that Sampaloc is still the most popular among the ecotourism lakes. And of course, the local government unit is really developing lake tourism in Lakes Pandin and Yambo. And they have also quite a share of tourists in the last 4 or 5 years. Okay, so that was for the introduction. And then for the objectives of this study, so we conducted a PRA, participatory rural appraisal activities, to elicit the local ecological knowledge on the historical development of aquaculture and ecotourism in the 7 lakes, as well as the changes in water quality through time. We also did actual sampling of water samples. So that's for the analysis of various water quality parameters and to compare the aquaculture and ecotourism lakes in terms of water quality and also in terms of fish diversity. So as for the methodology, these are some shots for our PRA activities. So we conducted timeline, community resource mapping, and also focus group discussion. So here are some shots of the activities taken when we were conducting the PRA. And this PRA was participated by fish cage operators, fisher folks, and Bantay Lawa volunteers. So each lake, we allocated 1 table, and the people that are sitting in there would be all those participants from that specific lake. We also did actual sampling for fish. So we soaked gill net overnight in the lake from 5 p.m. to 7 a.m. And the following morning, we collected all the fish species that were trapped in the gill net, okay, identified them, measured them, and even weighed them. So these are part of our team doing the fish measurements. And then the picture on the right side would be our team taking or collecting water samples from the lake. So we identified 4 or 5 sampling points. So that would be littoral areas near vegetation and littoral areas near houses. And then we took samples also right in the middle of the lake. That's the pelagic zone. We took samples inside fish cages. And if there is a water outlet, we would also take samples from there. And we analyzed the water for dissolved oxygen, BOD, chlorophyll A, and transparency. As for the results, we start with the timeline. So this is the timeline of aquaculture. So we asked the respondents to try to recall as far as they can remember. And so we started with the 1940s. So from 1940 to 1960, there is no aquaculture yet, but there is fishing, that's open water fishing, okay. Then in 1960, aquaculture, fish pens, fish cages were installed, established in the lakes, Palakpakim and Sampaloc. And so there was a rapid increase of the establishment of these fish cages in Palakpakim until around 2000, and in Sampaloc also just a bit after 2000. In the other lakes, Lake Bunot, it was in the 1970s when aquaculture was introduced, and it increased rapidly also until year 2000. In Lake Calibato and Mohicap, aquaculture was introduced 10 years later, that was in the 1980s. In Mohicap, that was from 1980 to 2000. And then after that, there was a decrease. So you will notice that in Bunot, Mohicap, Palakpakim, and Sampaloc, by the year 2000, the number of fish cages that were in there were dismantled because they have to follow the Laguna Lake Development Authority's mandate that it should be regulated and it should be around 10% only. For Lake Calibato, it's a different story. So you will notice here that it's still increasing up to now. Well, that is because their area is still below 10%, as you have seen in the previous table. For Lakes Pandin and Yambo, okay, through the years, so aquaculture was introduced, but only very few fish cages, 1.8 or 2% only of the surface area. This is the timeline of the number of settlements around the lake. So from 1940 to 1960, there are very few. Actually, in Lake Calibato and in Yambo, there was only 1 house, okay, around the lake. In the others, there are very few. The influx or the number of settlements increased starting from 1960 in Lakes Bunot, Palakpakim, Pandin, and Sampaloc. In Calibato, the increase in settlements started in the 1980s. In Lakes Yambo, there's still very few settlements even up to now. Okay, so you will notice here that in Palakpakim, by year 2000, they regulated the number of settlements because there are really plenty of settlements. So because the barangay is around and it's growing rapidly around Lake Palakpakim. And yeah, this is the heart of our PRA because we wanted to learn, okay, their perception on the water quality. So in all of the 7 lakes, the participants shared that from the 1940, okay, 1940s, they have very good water quality. It said that the water in the lake is clean. They can drink the water. They can use that for cooking, and their surrounding is still very pristine. So all of these good water quality condition, okay, change through time. So for Lakes Bunot, Calibato, it changed starting around 1970. After 1970s, the water quality, they said, started to decrease, okay? In Palakpakim and Sampaloc, the decline in the water quality started much earlier in the 1960s, okay? Now, in Mojica, the decline in water quality started in the 1980s, okay? You will notice that for all these 5 lakes, the reason for the decline in the water quality, they say, is due to the establishment of fish pens and fish cages, so aquaculture. For Pandin and Yambo, it was only in the year 2000 when they have noticed that the water quality in their lake started to decrease, okay? And their main reason is due to influx of tourists and the increase in settlements around the lake. As for the resource mapping, we also asked the participants to map, okay, the resources around and inside the lake. So I chose 2 lakes. One is Lake Palakpakim to represent the aquaculture lakes. So we have 4 scenarios here, 4 maps. Each map is spans for about 2 decades, from 1940 to 1960. So this is the scenario in Lake Palakpakim. They just have fishing boats for open water fishing. There are few houses, so still plenty of trees and vegetation around the lake, okay? The following 2 decades, from 1960 to 1980, you will notice that inside the lake, there's an increase in number of fish cages. There is a decrease in the number of trees, okay? But there's an increase in the number of houses. The third one here on the left bottom, 1981 to 2000, you will notice that there's a further increase in fish cages, in the number of houses, and a much less decrease in the number of fruit trees or other trees or vegetation. And from 2001 to 2019, so this is the scenario now. More fish cages, more houses, much less vegetation around the lake. So this one depicts the historical development, the historical changes in the land use and lake use. The same thing with Lake Pandin. This is the one that we chose to represent the aquaculture lakes. So very strikingly, you will notice that in their illustration from 1940 to 2019, there is still lush vegetation around the lake. And there are also, from 1941 to the most recent one, there are only much less houses, and they are located at certain area only. So it's basically in the top left corner here of there. So that's where most of the houses are. And then, so we have few fish cages, and the brown ones would be the bamboo rafts that's being used for tourism activities. Okay, for the water quality results, the first one here is dissolved oxygen. So basically, we compiled all the data for 2 time sampling for August and November 2019 for all the different sampling stations for all the lakes. So basically, ecotourism lakes would have higher dissolved oxygen, significantly higher as compared with aquaculture lakes. By the way, the red dotted line here, 5 ppm, would mean that's the threshold that's being for the dissolved oxygen, 5 ppm. right? And then you will notice that we have 0 and 5 here that would represent the depth of the sampling of the water. 0 means surface water, 5 is 5 meters below the surface. The next slide here is for BOD. So it's the reverse this time. The aquaculture lakes would significantly have higher BOD than the ecotourism lakes. And the red line here is about 7 ppm. So though it's still, the mean is still below, but you will notice that for some of the sampling points in the aquaculture lakes, we have as high as 10 ppm for BOD. So this would be those sampling sites or lakes that would really have maybe higher amount of organic material or excess feeds that are undergoing decomposition. This is for chlorophyll A, okay? So aquaculture lakes would have also higher amount of chlorophyll. They have more algae, okay? So actually in Lake Palakpakim, the color of the water is really yellowish, so yellowish greenish. Especially near or inside the fish cages. So the aquaculture lakes would have higher chlorophyll A as compared with ecotourism. And you could even see some of the data that we could have as much as more than 50 microgram per liter of chlorophyll in some of the sampling areas in some of the aquaculture lakes. For the transparency, ecotourism lakes have significantly clearer water. So we can see our Secchi disk up to about even 4 meters, okay, below the surface. The aquaculture lakes would have around 1.5 or 1.3 meters above sea level. Okay, with regard to fish diversity, so these are some pictures of the fish species that we found in all the 7 lakes. So you have their milkfish, different species of tilapia, and then red devil, okay, flower horn, and then ayungin, the letter O, it's a native species there. Okay. This table here is a checklist of the fish species that were collected in our August sampling in the 7 lakes. We did sampling also in November, but we were not able to complete all the 7 lakes. So we're just showing you the one-time sampling. So, but take note also that even the fish, the local fish cage operators or our resource persons there would say that there is quite a variation in the fish species that they could catch throughout the year. So please take note that this is one-time sampling. All right, so I highlighted in red here the native species. We have the bangus, the Chanus, the glossogobius, gliuris, and the ayungin, the one there. And then all the other species, the different species of tilapia, red devil, flower horn, are introduced species. So for Sampaloc, so mostly they have tilapia, the introduced species, and the red devil plus ayungin. In Bunot Lake, we have 1, 2, 5, 6 introduced species, different species of tilapia, red devil, flower horn, mixed red and green flower horn, and there's only 1 native species that is still thriving in there at that time, Bunot, ayungin. In Mohicap, it's Chana striata and then tilapia. And flower horn. Sorry, it's Parachromis malaquensis and Chana striata. In Lake Yambo, it still has all the 4 native species. This is the only lake where we found the bangus, the native bangus, the Chanus. And then it has the glossogobius, gliuris, and then the ayungin. And then all the introduced species, the Oreochromis niloticus, the tilapia, the red tilapia, and the other tilapia species. Lake Pandin has the tilapia species, clarias, and 2 native species, gliuris and the ayungin. Calibato, there was only 1 species, only the Oreochromis niloticus, only the tilapia. Lake Palakpakim, only 2 introduced species, the tilapia and the Carassius. And then in here, I would like to show you the abundance of fish species that were caught. Okay, so strikingly, you will see here the very tall red red bar here, that is the red devil. It's very abundant, more than 200 individuals that were found in Lake Bunot. In Lake Bunot, we also found abundant red tilapia and also the cage Oreochromis niloticus tilapia. And then take note, right somewhere in the middle of the graph, you will see bars there for green and red and green flower horn. These are introduced species, and Josh, one of our research team member who is an expert in fish, said that these species are invasive species. And then at the far right, I would like to show you the native species ayungin. So I'm happy here to show you that it is still thriving and it's quite abundant in 2 of the 5 lakes where it was found. So in summary, these different lakes have a mixture of introduced and native species. Okay, so we also computed for the various diversity indices. Lake Yambo would have the most number of fish species, 8. Calibato has only 1, only the tilapia. Okay, in terms of Shannon-Weiner diversity index, the highest would be Lake Yambo. Palakpakim has the highest Shannon evenness index, closely followed by Lake Yambo. And for species dominance index, Lake Pandin would have the highest one. And for our recommendation, policymakers and local government units should use these findings, okay, in crafting science-based strategies towards sustainable management of the 7 lakes. And so that's it. Thank you for listening, and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Demi. That was a very interesting presentation. We'll leave questions for the end after our first 3 speakers. So we